Oh, right. Well, so I changed my seat. I refreshed after reading the article once, maybe twice. I've given some thought to what I've been told to do about the main idea. And if you had been applying the four zones of influence, or if you had learned some active reading strategies, I think you will be content with the messaging behind David Suzuki's overpopulation is bad, but overconsumption is worse. The title itself is very direct, but it's not the full complete picture, right? And we know that we have to go into the article and dig. And this shouldn't take very long. We figure maybe 20 minutes tops if you're in a test situation where you're told you're going to have to come up with a lengthier composition as a response to a couple of question prompts. And in order to do that, you first have to determine, yes, the topic, the subject of the article that's been assigned, but also the author's particular bent, right? Their attitude, their emotion. These are things that we've discussed in previous lessons in previous weeks, and your course shell supports that over the various modules that are posted with lots of goodies about how to access material faster, but in a reliable way so that you're not skipping important details. Let me share my screen and just say that when you go through the article that you find for free at the library, and did I mention that when you source these things from the library, because the library's got everything, it may not look as pretty as the original. This was a Toronto Star article many, many, many years ago, probably before some of you were born, but the message is still relevant. And yeah, okay, I admit it, I'm a Suzuki fan. The guy can be referenced in future essays, potentially in your 171 course if you're doing some research. And this makes it so much easier when you have the computer to do it for you, because APA, as we all know, is very particular, especially for referencing. Not so much the citation. I think everyone gets that by now. But referencing, it takes more work. And I thought I just clicked this button and it didn't behave for me. I hope that your screen is like clear as day. It's not that black screen that sometimes blanks out with these Zoom recordings, where if I pop up a chat box or the participation breakout room dialog boxes, what you see in the recording are just black marks, giant black marks that mar the screen. And now you can no longer see what's behind it. But what I'm seeing in this dialog box is the library's generator of APA reference. And that's what's at the top of this paragraph outline Word document that I prepared, and we'll save you a copy by posting it in the same module where we have this thing called Paragraph Lab. It's kind of exciting because I'm doing this on the fly. And trust me, people, this is really au naturel. Okay. I haven't rehearsed this. It's one take. Let's get on with things. Now, the article itself is about 800 words. Also, an advantage of going through the library is that sometimes you get an abstract. So it functions very much like those introductory blurbs that are provided in our textbook. Another good reason to have a textbook is that the editors who selected these readings want to give you a little bit of a heads up, maybe even some advice about how to go about finding the main idea. But I read directly from the first paragraph, right? And so if you listened to it or watched it, you would have heard me go through with some emphasis, some degree of pause. As I was reading, it wasn't monotone exactly. There were places where I guess naturally I found interesting facts, highlights by Suzuki that I believe were intended to resonate with us. And this is the end. And some people jump to the conclusion, but it's not always clear. In journalese, the main idea is housed somewhere ahead of the conclusion. And if you abide by the four zones of influence, you'll say, well, approximately the 3/4 mark of the essay. And well, I just think that this material here is going to come in handy for when we have to answer a question that's related to this article, but will involve a lot of our own thinking, own observations, our own experiences. It's the way in which you produce an authentic or an original piece of writing. So you're not just regurgitating what somebody else said. And so this material here that I've highlighted, I happen to think may be useful for the writing prompt that we're going to get, and pretend like we were in a test situation where there's the clock. You got an hour and a half to whip up a paragraph based on this question. So the question is this. Write a paragraph on the ways in which you and your friends could change your lives on an everyday basis that would contribute to the preservation of the environment. Okay, that's lengthy. That's wordy. But you've got to look at that question and then chop it up into bite-sized chunks so that the question is more easily digestible. If there are too many words in a question and it's causing you confusion, the best thing you can do is begin dicing it up into smaller chunks, right? So yeah, this should be obvious, but I'm going to highlight it anyway. This video, unlike one that's coming on preliminary essay, this video is about building a paragraph. And you do this in response to a reading you were assigned. Note, I've copied and pasted the APA reference. I know it's looking a little wonky. I probably could have done a better job with this. Not great with Word, but I do have something called the hanging indent. So anybody who's like an APA nerd out there, you'll know that after the first line that begins with the author's last name, the family name, and it's listed alphabetically, you have to indent all the other lines that come after. This happens to be a very long hyperlink because it's not a Toronto Star. It is a Star article copied and housed in the library database of a client of Centennial College, ProQuest. And our library is amazing. They pay for so many subscriptions to so many databases. So if it's not ProQuest, it could be, oh gosh, what's the other one that's one of my favorites? I feel like it's Cengage OneFile. There are a couple of them that we tend to rely on, but for newspapers, this is one of the best ones, ProQuest. It's long, it's wonky. It's adequate for our purposes because I don't need to have it there. It's an exemplar, right? So I'm just putting it out there so you have a taste, a little feel, but that won't be required on a paragraph test, not to worry. Citations might be. If you have to refer to the article, then you have to remember this very simple fact that a citation is just 3 pieces of information. What would a citation look like? Let me demonstrate. Suzuki. Y'all remember this now, don't you? 1993. Now, depending on where you found the source of the quote, I would have to go back to my article. So I screen share again, back to the library database. I've highlighted these 2 paragraphs. I'm going to have to do the math. Paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Jackpot. 12 and 13. So depending on which part I'm going to use for my article, because I think, you know what? Key details here. There's something in here. Consumption is a key word, right? Because it's in your title. The fact that it comes up again, and this other word right behind it, not sustainable, 2 words. This is speaking to the title, isn't it? Because although the beginning of this essay spoke about people blaming third world countries, poor, overpopulated countries for climate change woes, Suzuki does not. Suzuki is saying that may not be a good situation, the overpopulation challenges in other parts of the world. But what's worse is right here in our neck of the woods. Pardon the pun. Suzuki's an environmentalist. The one that Suzuki's focusing on here is the first world. These terms are a little bit archaic. They're not used quite so much nowadays. There are some people who would say there's something racist behind it, but this was from 1993, right? So in the developed world, we have this problem of overconsumption. It's not sustainable, blah, 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 blah. If I'm going to paraphrase, because everyone has to paraphrase, there's no quoting, but I am going to use potentially an idea that was already brought up by Suzuki. We said paragraphs 12 and 13, right? So back I go to my outline. And ta-da! It's done. That's it. That comes at the end of your sentence in which you mentioned, according to Suzuki. Now that is a slightly different method of in-text citation, and I might even use it when I demonstrate what would referring to the article actually look like in writing. But I'll show you how to do that in a second. Otherwise, you just say things like they are, and at the end of the sentence, you put in parentheses Suzuki 1993 para 12. Because even though I've written it in my own words, I'm borrowing his idea, right? And so it when in doubt, cite. And the only citations you're going to do in 161, really, on tests, it's only ever from the assigned article, not the internet. You're not ever being asked during an assessment in class, like during those synchronous classes, like in real time. You're never being asked to go to the internet, open a new browser, find out everything you know, everything there is to know on the topic, like of environmentalism. It'll take too long. It is a fruitless wild goose chase. Don't do it. Trust yourselves. You have enough inside here to make some comments about the environment, especially when the question is so friendly and so personal. It's about you and your friends. I want to highlight that too. Why? Because you're the topic of the paragraph. Now, it's a specified topic. We have to be really clear about what are me and my friends supposed to be talking about or writing about. Yoma, you behave. My amble wants a little piece of the action. Change your lives on an everyday basis. Okay? And now the big question. How are we supposed to change our lives? Well, by preserving the environment, excuse me, the environment. Boom. You know, this is linked to the article just before. Doesn't tell you to talk about Suzuki's way to save the environment, save the planet. This is about you. Change something about your lifestyle right now that makes the planet better off. Ways in which you make smart choices to do something that's less bad to the planet. See where I'm going with this? In my mind, in the brainstorm that you're having, you should be treating these chunks of the question as jumping off points. where it could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that. And then when it comes to a paragraph, a topic sentence is really very straightforward. It's often just repeating the question, rephrasing it as an affirmative statement. So, my community, sorry, just get rid of those lines. They're annoying. But they're there as a placeholder to let you know that there is an organization, a method to paragraph writing that makes your writing stronger. Get in the habit of doing it this way, and you are going to rock this. Okay. So my community can do a number of things with our everyday lives, right? I'm borrowing from the question that will improve the health of the planet. Okay, I am just gonna bold that. I want this to be obvious, and hopefully you can see it in your screen as well as I see it on mine. But the idea here is not to go into great detail. It's to make a statement. It is to answer the question directly. A topic sentence brings up the topic, which is me, my friends, my community. That's my paraphrase. And we're going to do something, right? But specifically, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to do things in our everyday lives that make the planet better. Now, notice I didn't use the preservation of the environment. I could have. We'll do things on an everyday basis that from now on will help preserve the environment. That's good too. Topic sentences don't need to be fancy. They just need to answer the question by rephrasing the question. It's like a paraphrase exercise, isn't it? It's take that question, turn it into an affirmative statement. No more question mark. And we're off to the races. So what's one thing that I could do better, with things that I do every day? Well, I know I'm going to create less garbage, right? So you could say, my family will make sure to divert garbage from the landfill. Now, that first major supporting idea supports the topic sentence, doesn't it? Right? So what I'm saying is, here's one thing that I do every day, which is throw things out in the garbage. Well, maybe I don't do it so casually. My daughters will learn to properly throw food scraps into the green bin. You know what I'm saying? You all do it now. It seems to be very matter of fact. It wasn't not that long ago. People threw everything into the garbage can. That reminds me. Okay. We, as a family, will we're not going to throw it. We will, okay. Just thinking in my mind here, because I'm making this up as we go, so bear with me. We as a family, this is how it works, people. There's a lot of mistakes, false starts. Go back, start again. Whoops, change that. Let's tweak this. When you do a proper outline, it's the place for you to carve out the best answer and succeed at providing the best set of examples you can think of in that given period of time. I know in a perfect world, you would be coming up with much better information because you could You could think about it some more. And that's what it means to do a process essay, where you get to take it home, edit, proofread, redo, several versions later, the masterpiece. But this is not that situation. We are forced to do something within 20 minutes, let's say, read something for 20 minutes, take another 20 maybe to plan out a response, and use the remainder of that test period, which is about 40 to 60 minutes, to write out your good copy. Now, I'm merging, in a way, it's hybridizing the outline to good copy phase. Normally, the outline is just point form. But there are lots of students I know that prefer to start using complete sentences as best they know how right away. And so if you feel confident to do that, by all means, yes, lay out your plan in complete sentences. But normally, outline is for jot notes and moving them around so that they all work together nicely, like in a predictable way, in a logical way, in a nice flowing way. This contributes to the overall effectiveness of the paragraph. So going back to my point, we as a family will use the back of used paper for jot notes and scrap paper. So what I'm saying in that second sentence, and maybe I'm not that clear, but I'm just going to leave it at that, is that we'll treat any document, PWS, no, any piece of paper that's no longer of major use. We're done with it. Could be the mail. You get something in the mail, it's double-sided. On the back, it's blank. We could treat that as a place to write down our list of groceries for shopping instead of getting a brand new piece of paper, right? And then writing our grocery list. We're saving paper by not using new paper. So, so this is coming up. Is this starting to work? Like you're getting the feel for it now? Like if I were to, for example, go down to my second major point, which is, main supporting sentence with transition word number 2. We will learn, or sorry, we will begin to buy and trade used clothes. Now, for some people, they'd say, that's gross. No, I don't want to wear someone else's pants. Why would I do that? Well, I'm going to give you the reasons why in my particular case. It may not be you, but we could say the used clothes market, there's actually a trade in used clothes, is really a fashionable place, is a really fashionable place for finding cool clothes at good prices. That says I don't need to buy new clothes. What's implied in that sentence is that people can get nice used clothes in good condition from marketplaces that buy and sell, right? And that's really what should be the second example, right? If I bring my own old clothes, sometimes I can use them to trade and save money. More importantly, people are saying it's always about the money. No, it's true. Toronto, Kensington Market for a number of years. I don't know if it's quite the same. Some of those shops are expensive. They have vintage clothing. You've heard that term before, vintage, which gives it some allure, right? It gets away from like the typical associations, which is it smells bad, it's ripped, or it's got holes. Well, now holes are fashionable, right? And leather jackets look better worn. I mean, even the fashion houses themselves who sell brand new leather jackets, they put those jackets through processes that wear down the leather, break it in, make it soft. Looks cooler that way. Um, right? These are things, everyday life. I'm not an environmental scientist here. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a zoologist. I'm just an ordinary person thinking about ways I can change my lifestyle to be more gentle, gentler on the planet. Right? Cool. Now we need a third idea. Why? Because paragraphs, proper extended paragraphs abide by this rule of three. And it's a good habit to get into, especially now, because it's the future. And we transition from just writing extended paragraphs to expanding into preliminary essays. And that means that everything you learn now in terms of how you strategize, how you write, draw things, extract things from your mind and put it on paper or, the digital notepad. This is the habit that you want to get into so that it's second nature by the time you're asked to do more writing, which is intimidating to a lot of people. Being asked to expand, detail, be more specific, be concise, but make sure that you're coherent and things like are nicely tied together, unified, right? There's a lot going on in the background you may not be conscious of. And so it's a healthy habit to get into doing outlines before you go to good copy because you can sort things out, put it down on the page, and not worry about losing it because any number of distractions can come and just disrupt you, like my dog. Right, I'm used to my amble making a lot of noise, but my children could come home in any minute, so I got to get this done. I better put it down before I forget because I'm going to be pulled this way and that way. You can relax. If you've got an outline set up, you will come back to this and it will be like this when it's time to do the good copy because you've got that map, you've got that plan, the how to, first, second, third, finally. Now, those are transition words. And if anybody noticed, yes, every time there's a heading here, they're prompting you for a transition word. So let me do that with the third one. I didn't do it for the second one. I could have said, moreover, let me put that in just to give you a taste of what it's like to put icing on a cake. Okay, that's what transitions are. They make it nice and smooth and pretty, and they make you want to keep eating some more or reading some more. So, that third supporting sentence, now we got to think about this. How can I be more sustainable, less consumerist? Oh, this is easy. Why don't we just think about how we get to school? Between, sorry, I should say, finally. This is not an in conclusion, by the way. That's a transition that's saved for a final point in a group of major points, right? But finally, between my partner or wife and I, we have decided to take public transportation red squiggly, to work every day instead of driving. In this case, a car. Okay, I can be specific. It doesn't matter because a topic sentence is a statement. I'm sorry, a major supporting sentence is a statement without the detail, without the examples, without providing, you know, instead of driving a car, I could very easily remove that and still call it a solid topic sentence. Why? Because there you go again. The major supporting point, the third major supporting point here, um, is one of many areas in which we make these choices. You know, how to answer that question depends on three major things that we do. But in a paragraph, when we write it out, when we chart out our path, these major supporting point sentences are not detailed like the example or minor supporting point sentences. They're called major, but it's funny. You'd think they sound important. I should put lots of detail in there. I should be really, really, really clear with what I mean. No, you can be clear, but brief with a major supporting point. The details, the explanation, the specifics, they come in the example sentences. Maybe it's a misnomer to call them minor points, but that's where those specifics go in, right? And so when we go back to that point, the third one, finally, between my partner and I, we decided to take public transportation to work every day. Thank you. Someone reminded me. I spelled that wrong. We are going to look for something Suzuki said, you know, and we're going to say, if people don't stop using cars to get around, so often we can't hope to have clean air to breathe. And so what I'm going to do here is insert my reference to the reading. Now, some may say that's a stretch. You know, where does it say that in paragraph 13? Well, it doesn't. It doesn't exactly say that. But Suzuki is hinting in paragraph 13 that if we keep burning up resources like oil that fuel the car, and if we keep turning it into smoke out the tailpipe, that's air pollution, we will not have clean air to breathe. So what I've done here, I've taken some liberties. That's true. I haven't copied and pasted a quotation because that's not the point. In 161, you've got to learn to start taking the author's ideas and doing a little of this with your own language, your own understanding of what the author is getting at. You rewrite it. And it's great because it keeps your language control consistent. The moment we try and put in a quotation, it involves taking another person's writing style and smashing it into ours. And it isn't always easy to integrate, to smoothly connect the sentences. It usually ends up as a fragment, a grammar deduction. And so you're like, why did I bother? I'm getting penalized here. I'm not getting rewarded. The test says I have to refer to the reading at least once. And yet Mark is giving me a hard time because he says this doesn't fit. Well, that's true because grammatically it probably doesn't. And I'm trying to also tell you, if you took the time to reword it, then your sentences are more consistent. You have more control, less likely to make mistakes. I mean, the English Tutoring Center is available to help you with the everyday sentence structure errors or those habitual grammar mistakes. But that's for another lesson. What we're trying to do here is show you when you can add material from the original article. It's not a lot. It's just a little bit. It's maybe 10% of the total word count in your compositions, right? When we get to preliminary essay, they'll want a minimum of 2, and 2 is a good number. You put an article reference in one paragraph, and then another article reference in like a third paragraph, but not in the same paragraph, because too many article references together make it an article summary, right? And so I'm still going to have to come up with something else about why public transportation is great, you know, um, and why it makes my life so much more meaningful. Suzuki gets at that as well. I didn't think that was the major pitch, but there is mention of it. Do I need to cite that? Possibly. But what I want to say is that, taking the subway has allowed both of us to get some work done and not bring it home to do when we are with our family. You know how it is. Your kids want your attention and you just can't let go of work because it's really pressing. And the boss wants something the very next day. Didn't quite get it done at the office. You brought it home with you. You're working on it. It's so stressful. What if you weren't stuck in traffic? Right? This could be my third example. Traffic jams, the commuting, the time it takes to get home. It's much faster for public transportation. But the point I'm making here is that the subway is a place where I can get some work done and still get home in a really good amount of time. I mean, we're talking about the theme of sustainability, right? You go back to, and this is another reason why the outline is good. It's right there in bold, it's highlighted, the preservation of the environment. What do you do on an everyday basis? There are these side benefits too, right? Long story short, what I'm going to do is, give a conclusion. Okay. And that's really simple because the conclusion or concluding statement, my family came home. Didn't I tell you? The concluding statement is just a paraphrase of the topic sentence, which is like so awesome because you don't have to think so much as play with the words, be flexible with your vocabulary. I said my community can do a number of things with our everyday lives that will improve the health of the planet. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to say, my family and I can feel good about the changes we are making because we only have one planet and we want our children to enjoy it when we are gone. But what do you think? I mean, you're like expecting the teacher to pull off a pretty good paragraph. I think I did okay. I don't know if it's my best work, but I'm hoping that this represents, your first big step in understanding what's expected from the COMM 160, 161 in terms of getting an extended paragraph. No, I didn't go back and count those sentences for you, but you may have noticed that I had a pattern going on there. I had a major, minor, minor, a major, minor, minor. In other words, I had 2 example sentences for every major sentence. Okay. So if I had 3 major sentences and I had 2 minor sentences for every major sentence, that's 3, 3, and 3, 9 altogether. A topic sentence makes 10. A concluding sentence makes 11. Baby, you're right in the range. Normally on a test, it's going to tell you 10 to 12 sentences for an extended paragraph. Sometimes teachers are liberal and they say you could go up to 15, but no more than 15, not fewer than 10. And we're in the zone. So just have a look at that. Maybe revisit it in a few weeks. Um, Remember, this is material that possibly could help you on a paragraph test in the future, but it's more likely this is a review of how to write a better paragraph going forward. And it doesn't hurt to take it into consideration for what's coming next, which is the preliminary essay and the expectations for your exit test in the final week of term. Thanks so much.